You're running full speed, but the markets are faster. Quasar Markets Live brings the world's top financial minds to you. Everything you need to know in one place. Learn from elite educators and gain a competitive edge, leveling the playing field for you. Join the conversation. Quasar Markets Live.
Good afternoon, Quasar Markets Live. So happy to be joined by my main man himself, Charlie Moon. What's going on, Charlie? How's everything going?
Everything's going great, brother. How's it going with you?
Everything is good. So for those that don't know, Charlie is the main man over at Prosper Trading Academy when it comes to everything on the AI stock side, momentum stock side, penny stock side, you name it, Charlie trades it. Charlie, I got to come right at you and ask, we got some big earnings today. What are you watching? What are you watching tonight?
Great question. Obviously, a lot hinges on not just Microsoft and Meta tonight, but Amazon and Apple. Due to the market cap weighting of these stocks, we could see a big transition overnight, both bullish or bearish, depending on outcomes. Now, it seems like the general sentiment around Microsoft is that they're expecting a negative reaction on a negative earnings report. I'm actually a bit contrarian to that idea. What we've seen so far from other Mag 7 names, Netflix, Tesla, and Google, Netflix obviously didn't have much concern in relation to tariff news. They've since earnings been just absolutely going vertical. Tesla was one of the more trickier ones along with Google, right? Tesla reports their delivery numbers every month. They've had retracting deliveries and production numbers. So, people were expecting a bad earnings report, but, the problem here was that people were thinking that bad earnings report was going to crater the stock. And since then, I believe Tesla moved as high as 25% since earnings. Now, they're obviously off of that level, being down 16 points today, but that's more of a technical reason. They rejected at the 200 simple moving average on the daily chart. But for me, Tesla was one of those bad news was priced in. When they heard the earnings report, it wasn't as or any worse than what was expected. And the catalyst for the liftoff in Tesla was that Elon was announcing that he was going to spend more time as CEO of Tesla and less time with Doge or Doji.
Right. So he
Starting in May, and that was more than
don't
enough.
fade the Musk again, right?
Yeah, that was more than enough for people to be like, let's rip it into Tesla. And with Google, a lot of people were expecting CapEx to be such a negative that it was going to, devastate earnings. And, Google had several things that were very positive. Of course, anytime you announce a $70 billion buyback, that's going to be bullish. But one of the things that I'm taking away from that is the ad rev. Ad rev on YouTube was higher than expected. They showed a decrease their last quarter. So seeing that increase is showing that digital ad spending is starting to come back up. And that's what makes me optimistic about Meta. But we'll get into that in a second.
And I'll tell you that I'm with you on that Google one. The YouTube surprised me because I've noticed for, here at Quasar, we get most of our views now on Twitter versus YouTube. And it's interesting. I almost said that YouTube's now become the place where you go to watch not the live event, but it's where you get all of your sort of recorded information.
The recaps.
Yeah. And just the replays. Like, what I mean?
Replays, opinions.
It'll be very hard to refine this on our Twitter page, our interview right now, but it'll be easy to find it on our YouTube page.
Sure. 100%. And, if you think about it, partly as well, what's going to kind of reignite or reinvigorate kind of the social media aspect and maybe internet searching and kind of information taking is a lot of this is attributed to the news that's been coming out of the White House constantly, right? The news feed being filled, littered with tariff news. One day it's one thing, an hour later it's another thing, and so people are, veering more away from mainstream media mainstream media, channels, and really look into sources such as X, such as social media, and of
Yeah.
course YouTube. So for me, that is a really big thing. And in general, Meta tends to really do well on earnings. They had a retraction last quarter, but actually held up pretty well. I just feel like a lot of this social media nonsense, especially whether it's people voicing opinions or arguing about other people's opinions, is going to be a positive for Meta. And with
You
the
think, right? Yeah, it's sort of like I always laugh when Robinhood and some of the other Schwab go down when the market goes down, and I'm like, they actually trading revenue goes up. People are trading, even if they're selling,
yeah,
they're trading. Their fees are fees.
right. And so now this kind of leads into Microsoft. So, right. So I'm pretty bullish on Meta. So Microsoft, where should we look? Well, Microsoft actually does and has started to, along with Amazon, get into the realm of ad revenue generation. But what's really important here is CapEx spending for both Microsoft and Meta. How much are they pretty much burning in cash for AI development and growth? So the flip side to that is, well, what is Microsoft's AI enterprise services going to do? One of the things that they've started to do is include Copilot with a lot of their enterprise services, either as a free add-on or a cheap add-on. And a lot of companies are starting to take advantage of it. That's really where their AI services can really shine, because if companies find Copilot to be asset in the long run, that means that companies are going to veer towards that subscription model. As well, we've seen cloud companies reporting well already. Cybersecurity companies are talking about strong partnerships. I've always felt, and I said this in one of my TV appearances in November, that 2025 is going to be the year of AI, but not for the component makers, but for the services, the data centers, the cloud companies, the cybersecurity companies.
Yeah,
And
we've
so
seen with
far, they've held up
Salesforce,
better than the
those
semis.
companies, CRM, and now
100%.
with those
Yeah,
companies
Dell could be another
that,
one.
that are
Oracle.
integrating it into the products we use and making the products we already. I think that's a big takeaway that I have too is a lot of these services that AI isn't just going to replace everything we have. It's going to enhance a lot of them. And they're going
Enhancement
to
is
integrate it
correct.
in, you know. And I think
And that's
that's
the thing. Every company is looking to be more efficient, right? Because efficiency equates to better bottom line. And if they could spend some now to be more profitable later, that's always a very important configuration into growth for corporations. And that's really where Microsoft, Meta, Google, Amazon, they've been pretty steadfast in how much they're looking to spend in this calendar year. Ranges from 40 billion to
right.
really 100 billion. And I think that's the two most important metrics. How much is, so like if Meta comes out and was like, well, we were looking to spend 45 billion capex, but now we're bumping to 60, even with really strong numbers, that could have a very negative effect on earnings and what the view of Meta is going to be going forward. But seeing the valuations of these companies right now, for me, it's not going to take much for them to go up. And
Right.
seeing how Tesla, Google, and Netflix has performed really leads to a lot of optimism. I think the one that we have to be really, really shaky on is Amazon. It wouldn't surprise me if Amazon is to say we're going to withhold guidance for the next quarter and possibly the full year because of the tariff issues. We don't know how that's going to affect us. I don't expect Apple to be having a glowing report per se, because they're going to talk about tariffs as well. But if they could talk about how they can mitigate tariffs, maybe working on that perceived deal with India,
Right, or carve
possibility of
outs.
Vietnam.
We know that Tim Cook's looking for some carve outs, for
Yeah,
some of those
and
things out of Vietnam. You
right,
know,
and so
I think you just took one of my takeaways. It's going to be more about forward guidance than it is what's happened in the past, right?
sure, of course, and that's what stock prices are. Stock prices are a reflection of future valuation, not current valuation. And so if Apple can kind of, mitigate these tariffs and talk about what their plan is and how soon it could be implemented, Even if their guidance isn't as strong as expected, it could still at least prop the stock up to the point where they're not going to be down 7% and cause the Nasdaq to be down 2+% on their own dealing. Like I said, Amazon is the big wild card here. Out of the 4 names that's due to report, that's the one I'm most concerned with. I'm pretty optimistic about Meta and Microsoft. Again, I could be dead wrong here. I don't know. I'm not a fundamentalist. I'm a technician. I trade
Absolutely.
technicals, but the general thought is based on the valuation, based on the current price right now. These are very attractive levels for these companies. Going forward longer term, and as long as these reports are devastatingly negative, I just feel like there's a better chance that they're actually going to go up than down. And I think that they're just going to really surprise a lot of people, but people were surprised about Tesla and Google as well.
Absolutely. I think it's always, when everybody's looking on one side of the boat, it's the fish that jumps up on the other side. And that's what we could see here. The other thing that you brought up, being a technicals guy like myself too, I was really happy to see 466 hold up really well this morning in the Qs. Did that give you some signs of relief here? Maybe that that was for me the big resistance for 2 weeks. We got above it. Now it's acting as support.
Yeah, no, and this is another thing that we've noticed, or at least I have noticed. The the this morning, we've had a lot of different alerts and tweets that have come from Trump or the White House or White House administration representatives, and not all of it has been great. But the market continues to absorb any sort of negative news as opposed to flash and really crush us down to like 2, 3, 4%. We've really absorbed this news, and every time we've kind of hit this like negative turn early in the day, we've had this rebound, effectively going on for about 4 or 5 days now. I don't know if I can show my chart, but
Sure, go right
um,
ahead. Let me pull this off.
here you go. Let me send share screen, entire screen. There you go. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can see my chart. Okay. Now, if you
For us, there we go.
okay, so what I'm going to pull up is the Qs here. Give me 1 second. There you go. Now, we're going to talk about this from a technical break standpoint. So hopefully you can keep along with my drawing. Right here, you can see there's been a lot of green arrows that I've already highlighted as a teaching moment to my students. But this was the 20 simple moving average. Now, in the world of volatility, especially since we folded over these longer term moving averages, the reference point of the faster EMAs and SMAs is vital in this market environment. And over the last month and a half, this has been a hardcore suppression level. Last time we touched this level, there was that rejection. This was the initial rejection. You could see this rejection here. And what really stood out to me was that we gapped up and then held this level right here for support. So what we saw was a previous very consistent resistance level turn into immediate support. So my thinking was that we're going to make this run to the 50, which is exactly what has happened. And now, not surprisingly, we deflected from that level. But look at how fast on the faster moving averages we picked up ourselves right off the lows. Howard,
Right.
this is the linear regression channel, the one that you told me about. That's the
Yep.
linear regression mean this morning, and that's exactly where we bounced from, almost to the penny this morning. So,
Yeah.
when we stay above that upper tier, that keeps it in that bullish state. When we stay above these short-term moving averages, it means that we're in a short-term bullish state. And so the market is taking on this bullish stance when everybody continues to think the sky is falling. They're missing out on this up move. I recognize this. I didn't call that many trades. I called 3, but I was successful in all 3. All 3 were to the upside here since this moment has taken place. Now, I wish I would have called 20 and really, made my
Yeah.
year, but I still was
Now, it's funny because I said it this morning. I said it was the opposite of yesterday and the day before until I could see a break. Pre-markets moved the market one way, and we spent the other part of the rest of the cash market day moving in the opposite, in the mean
Yes, sir.
reversion, you know. So to me, that was the play. Until you prove that wrong to me, I'm going to keep following a trend, right? You are the disciple of trend himself. So, I mean, that is, you know, that's all I was doing, is taking what I've learned from you over the years at Prosper and, you know, putting it into play. But that's really what it's been, is we've seen, you know, the algos try to catch bull and bear traps each morning, right?
100%. 100%. And that's the thing. Remember, they're the controllers of the market, right? They're the ones that provide 60+% liquidity in the markets. They're the ones that are the most active traders in the markets. They're, you know, implementing hundreds, if not millions, of trades on a daily basis across the board, whether it's through treasuries, futures, options markets, equities. It doesn't matter. But what does matter is what their thesis is. Thesis right now has shifted to the bull side, at least in the near term. And
Yep.
anytime you see, and here's a great learning point, folks, if we're underperforming, we're under these faster moving averages, we're still staying in a short term bearish thesis. But once we start crossing over and starting to hold above these levels, that should tell you that what that should trigger to you is that short term sentiment is changing and expectations should change as well. And when we have room, meaning spacing in between one technical level to the next, the possibility, especially if the momentum is in that direction of hitting what I would call a profit pocket, is
Yep.
very likely. And that's exactly what we were pinpointing at this moment. Now, for me, because of where we are, this also leads to a very critical point with Microsoft and Meta. If we can have those two stocks have us actually pump up, there's a chance that we get above this 476 threshold tomorrow and see the markets actually scream ahead of the Amazon Apple earnings. And then, like I said, anything goes. At that point, I have no idea what's going to happen because those are the two wild cards.
Yeah, I mean, you know, no one knows for sure. You definitely, what I love is that, and you know, it still matters, is the charts matter because they show you those levels. Where will people take profit? Where is the prior resistance? Where's the
Yes.
prior support? Those things are definitely holding up, and I'd see they're holding up more right now than they had been in the last few weeks. You know, are you noticing that too?
Yes, 100%. Again, that's another clear sign when support wasn't a reliable aspect, but now is. And then we're starting to see resistance, which was unpenetratable, now
Huh.
being breached and broken,
Yeah. Yep.
unpenetratable.
And it's acting as immediate support in some cases, which
And
is
again, if
really
that's the
good.
if that's the visual cue, that's historically always been a very bullish sign.
And like for me, looking at Bitcoin, what we haven't seen is the big retracement, right? Moves up aren't necessarily being completely sold off.
Right.
Um, and
Which would
that
which
shows
would
you
be
strength.
fairly immediate, right, sir? It'd be
Yeah.
fairly immediate the following day.
Yeah. So I'm pretty happy with that. Charlie, any last words of wisdom for us before we take off for the day? I don't want to monopolize all of your time.
Trust and believe and listen to Howard Greenberg. He knows the truth.
I appreciate that, sir. Charlie, the legend himself, disciple of trend. Make sure you're following him. I'll put up his Twitter handle here again. Definitely want to. The man knows what he's talking about. When it comes to technicals, there's no one better. Just ask Mel Kiper himself, right? I will talk to you later. Again, everybody from Quasar Markets, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.